Welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday. I'm Anthony, he's Ron, and we are about to uncover the MAGA propaganda not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. Ron, where do we start? Max Miller, probably a good place to start. Tell us about the scandal, bring people up to date with where it's at, and then I'll show a couple of very incriminating clips.
Yeah, I mean, this really illustrates the moral bankruptcy of the Republican Party, and it's just the fact that Mike Johnson and other Republican leadership, Donald Trump, continue to stand by this guy, even after many other Republican senators, including Bernie Moreno, his father-in-law, have denounced him and called for him to step down. Some of the most hardcore MAGA Trump supporters have called this guy a monster and asked for him to step down. And yet Mike Johnson and others and Trump continue to stick by this guy. He's accused of throwing boiling water on his ex-wife, Bernie Moreno's daughter, of allegedly breaking the collarbone of his 2-year-old daughter. So many different allegations. He's been accused by at least 3 different women of physical abuse, who don't even know each other. It's not like they coordinated with each other. His father-in-law, Bernie Moreno, Republican senator, as MAGA as you can get. Here's the deal. You either believe Bernie Moreno or you believe Max Miller, because they're telling two opposite stories. Miller says Moreno's lying. Moreno says Miller's lying. So if you're defending Max Miller as a Republican, you're saying that Bernie Moreno is lying, is just making this up and lying to frame him. And I can tell you, too, as a longtime criminal defense lawyer who cross-examined thousands of people on the witness stand, including hundreds and hundreds of domestic violence cases I handled, so many victims and defendants, witnesses. This guy is textbook. He checks every box. Everything he says is a textbook. And anyone who's ever been involved with domestic violence, either as a victim, a family member, or somebody who's worked in the professional field as a counselor or whatever, they recognize that this guy shows all the signs of being a psycho abuser.
Let's take a look, because Jake Tapper unusually did quite a good interview with him. Let's just take a look at a couple of the questions that he asked.
But here's the thing. You're talking about a level of standard of proof that has to do with judges. And there is separately a different level when it comes to what kind of behavior is tolerated among public officials. Because there are now 3 women who have accused you of violent behavior. Politico published a report in 2021 that says when you were in high school, you, quote, pushed a girl out of the dorm of his room and she fell down some stairs after he became enraged when she resisted his attempts to touch her, according to 3 people who were there and many more who heard about the incident in the aftermath. Now, you deny that, but the woman in question told Mother Jones reporter Abby Vasulis just days ago that it happened and was, quote, one of the more traumatic nights of her life.
Now, I would love for that individual to go on the record, because that
Okay.
I was
hold on, because I'm not done with the list of women that have accused you of violence. Then there is former White House press secretary. Okay, you were young. Then there's former White House press secretary Stephanie Grisham, who was your ex-girlfriend. She accused you of being abusive and having a violent streak. She wrote in her book, quote, I could do nothing right by him. I would wake up every morning shaking with anxiety about his mood that day. I had seen his temper before, and it had scared me, unquote. She has recently filed a temporary restraining order against you in a defamation case. And now there are these claims from your ex-wife, Emily Marino. And I guess the question is, are all 3 of these women who don't know each other, are all 3 of them lying?
Yes, it's very easy, and I can tell you why. Every single time, and people have asked.
Okay, I'm not going to give him a chance to make his case in this case, because I have other clips of him being asked similar questions and giving similar answers. But the point is here that, how can I put this as simply as possible? Always believe the women, right? It's like with any survivors, to go through whatever they've been through and to even have the confidence to come forward, always believe the victims. It's never worth people putting themselves through the kind of trauma that they have to go through to even go public if these things didn't take place.
I mean, I have a slightly different standard from being in the system for so long and dealing with so many cases, which is I have a presumption that the women are telling the truth. I don't always automatically believe them because I've quite honestly seen many women lie in court and in these cases because they have ulterior motives that usually come out when you question them and dig deeper or you talk to their friends or whatever. But I will say I agree with you that 95% of the time when women come forward to make these allegations or when children come forward to make allegations of abuse, they are telling the truth because of the reasons you said, because their life gets turned upside down and they're taking on a lot of stress and a lot more risk of violence because the reality is by coming forward, because the reality is most of the homicides that occur, well, take the OJ, for example, and many others, they occur because after someone has gone to the police and reported it, when there's a lower level incident, a punch, a shove, a kick, a bite, that kind of thing. It's typically when that person finally goes to the police and makes a report, every expert will tell you that the 24 hours after that person makes that allegation is the most dangerous time period for the victim. And they know that. And that's why people don't typically make things like this up. They're not like other kinds of crimes. It's very rare that people fabricate this. So my approach is like, I don't always believe women. I never really liked that, never really was comfortable with that saying, but I would say there's a presumption in my mind that victims of child abuse, sex abuse, and domestic violence are telling the truth until that presumption can be overcome by very strong evidence to prove that they're not telling the truth. I presume that they are telling the truth.
Let's take a look at another of these clips. Further allegations against this man.
So I meet him at the Bay Village Police Station because that's the place that we have to go to meet because I don't know what this guy's capable of. She comes over, gets in our car, we drive away, and if anybody's a parent, she has a little blue bunny that she sleeps with. Max would not hand over the little blue bunny. Literally held it hostage for 48 hours. This girl is crying at night because she can't sleep without her little blue bunny. And his answer is, I'm just not going to give it to you. So finally yesterday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, yesterday, he lets the little blue bunny go. This is the level of total and complete depravity.
Just explain what's going on here.
Because it's about control with these people. Everything is about control and domination. And they look for the tools to manipulate people, whether it's their spouse or whether it's their child. And sometimes when physical abuse is not available to them in this particular situation where he is maybe separated from the child and is not able to use physical abuse or is aware that people are watching him closely, he will find another way to put out abuse in an effort to manipulate and control. You know, I'm not going to give you your bunny back unless you say what I want you to say.
So or this is emotional abuse.
You go against mommy, or you want to live with me instead of mom. I mean, you know, a lot of us have been in those situations where parents are playing children off of each other and using the children to get at each other in child custody battles. And that's clearly what this guy's doing. I've just seen so many of these cases. This guy, like, every time I watch him, it's like triggers another box for me of somebody that I have seen in the court system who was guilty. Things he says are things that they said, you know, so many times over and over again. It's just a classic example of, and, you know, look, Moreno wouldn't say anything for the longest time.
I mean,
and that's the fault. That's a character flaw of him. He wouldn't come out and defend his daughter until Miller came out and released that video, that live stream. I think it was on Sunday morning. And trashing his daughter. And it was only then that Bernie Moreno finally had the courage to speak out and call for him to resign. But even then, John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, and Mike Johnson both said it's a family matter and it's for the courts. I can tell you, if a domestic violence prosecutor had that attitude, because that's the attitude that we used to have. I was a prosecutor when OJ happened. I was a young, new prosecutor, just started out. And I was in the domestic violence unit. I was doing domestic violence cases before and after OJ. And I can tell you that prior to OJ, that was generally the policy of most prosecutors' offices around America, which is it's a family matter. If the victim comes in and changes their mind, doesn't want to prosecute, we're just gonna let it go and drop it. But after OJ, everything changed and policy changed and our training changed. And we were told that we were going to prosecute these cases even if the victim didn't want us to. So they would come in and press charges and tell us in tears what happened and show us the bruises. And then what always happened so many times was 2 or 3 weeks later, they would come back and they would say, I want to drop the charges. We're back together. He bought me something. We had a nice dinner.
He only hits me because he loves me, and all that stuff.
And it's like in the past, you would always just say, okay, and drop the case. But we were told not to do that anymore.
Right.
So if you have enough evidence to prove the case, you're going to go forward whether the victim wants you to or not. And I think that was a good change. So, but if we had the mentality that Mike Johnson and John Thune have, this is a family matter, then domestic violence cases wouldn't get prosecuted, and there would be a lot more homicides and hospitalizations of women and children in this country if prosecutors had that attitude.
It's also an example of the kind of mindset within the GOP and MAGA Republicans, and especially Donald Trump, because Trump doesn't actually see anything bad in any of this. And this is something that repeats time and time again, a bit like where he wished Ghislaine Maxwell well, right? Because
exactly the same about Miller.
Exactly.
He wishes him well.
And he says he's been treated very unfairly. And these themes expose, especially with Mike Johnson and this kind of, the whole kind of trad wife and the baby voice and all that stuff. This is all part of this kind of Christian nationalist lockdown, this kind of Handmaid's Tale lifestyle that we are learning more and more about.
Because they don't believe that abuse allegations should leave the family.
Right.
That they should be kept inside the family circle.
Right.
That should be hashed out between you and your pastor. The pastor should help resolve these things. But you shouldn't go to the police. You shouldn't go to the court system. You shouldn't go public with the allegations. Because that's the wrong thing to do. That's the mentality that you're talking about that people like Mike Johnson have. Trump's mentality is totally different. It's not grounded in Christian fundamentalism. No. It's grounded in misogyny and just the fact that he's a predator.
Yes. But also a lot of these people don't even realize that what they are doing is domestic abuse. They don't understand that.
That is true.
That you would have to be very physically violent or potentially kill your partner to be a domestic abuser, but they don't recognize that emotional abuse is considered domestic abuse, domestic violence. They all fall under the same category these days.
That is true, because when I have had many clients who are ordered to go to the court-ordered domestic violence counseling, which is a specific kind of counseling that lasts a minimum of 7 months, and that's a lot of what those classes are about. And you're right that so many of those, primarily men, it's over 90% men, don't realize a lot of their behaviors is abusive, is controlling. They think if I don't punch the person or cause an injury or a physical injury, it's not abuse. And, I will say that maybe half of them who go through those programs reject it and just, they get through it. But half of them, their eyes are really opened and they do change. and they do realize what they're doing, and they realize how to stop doing it. And, so that does happen, but it only happens when they're forced to go to counseling.
Yes.
Unfortunately, very few of them realize it on their own.
And a lot of these characters have found sanctuary in the Trump administration. And that's what I find interesting.
And by the way, what makes this worse and what enables it is drugs and alcohol. And, those things can escalate these situations. And, Miller in that interview admitted that he illegally took testosterone, was shooting up testosterone.
Right.
But then he cited Pete Hegseth and said,
Yeah.
the fact that Pete Hegseth is now going to have American soldiers shooting up testosterone, that proves that there's nothing wrong with it. He actually said that.
Well, I'm pleased that they finally worked out how to achieve transgender for everyone with their hormone injections. All right,
we know if you abuse testosterone, it makes you much more aggressive and violent if you take too much. And you can tell from looking at this guy, he's jacked up on something.
Yeah.
All
right, I'm going to play a minute or so of the live stream that he did that you mentioned, where he has chosen a kind of perfect kitchen environment and cards to daddy and stuff behind him. Let's take a look.
My former wife has claimed that during a custody exchange at my home that day, I assaulted her. Here's what actually happened, and I have the Ring doorbell footage that backs it up. She came to my home in a good mood, and we have text messages to prove it, which you'll have, to pick up our daughter early for a friend's birthday party. She was inside my house for several minutes when she left. The video shows her walking out, carrying our daughter calm, in the same good mood, showing no distress whatsoever. And as they left, you can hear me say, "Goodbye, I love you, and I love you, Ruthie," literally telling my ex-wife that I still cared for her. Does that sound like somebody who would just walk out and who had been violently thrown a wall and been abused? She didn't call the police after that. She didn't go to the hospital, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want to know what she did? She went straight to a child's birthday party. The very next day, we had a friendly phone call about our daughter's upcoming hospital procedure, and I drove in from Washington to be there for it. 6 days later, she offered to cook empanadas for me for dinner, just 2 days later after this alleged incident. The day after that, she invited me and my girlfriend, and which you'll have in text messages, to join her and our daughter at a playground. And that day, I just went with my former wife to the playground to spend time with our daughter. A week later, on February 15th, she wrote to me in her own words, which you will see, "I think it's great you and I are in a friendlier place." She then offered me more extra overnights with our daughter, which I can prove to every single one of you as recently. Every one of these messages is time-stamped on our court-sanctioned co-parenting app and is all in the packet. Only weeks later did the story of February 1st assault appear, so ask yourself, if I had assaulted her, would she have offered to cook me dinner 6 days later? Would she have invited me to spend an afternoon at the playground with her and our daughter? Would she have written that we were in a friendlier place? No, she wouldn't have, ladies and gentlemen.
It's very interesting. Now, obviously, we are not making a judgment on his guilt or otherwise, but it is very clear through, anybody who can see through these types of statements and thinks critically, that when you put the focus on the empanadas as an example, and using the food as a scapegoat, amongst other things. You don't tell your ex that you love her. That in itself is a form of emotional abuse too. There is a kind of undercurrent there of somebody who is clearly looking for excuses.
Yeah, it's what the behavior he describes. A lot of that stuff is very common for domestic violence victims. And he's only giving us, he's shading it the way he wants to shade it. He's giving us little tiny snippets of information without giving us the context,
Right.
and without giving us the backstory. But look, I mean, I could use hundreds of examples of my own cases, but look at O.J. Simpson. I mean, how many times did Nicole Brown invite O.J. over, reconcile with him, get back together, go out to dinner after she was abused, in between abuse. They had at times a friendly relationship, you could call it that, because a lot of these people are afraid. They're trying to appease their ex or the person that they're separated from, or the person that they're frequently getting back together for, because they're afraid. They're afraid that the person is going to do something worse. And so they're just trying to keep that person happy,
Yes,
and trying to keep that person off their case
and keep themselves safe at the end of the day.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So a lot of this can be, what complicates it is when you have children in common, because you can't have that clean break. You can't get away from that person and separate yourself. You're forced to have contact with that person because you co-parent a child. And that's the most stressful situation for a domestic violence victim, is when you're forced to continue to have contact with your abuser because you have a child in common through the court system.
Yeah. It's very interesting when these things come out in the open and they become part of the national debate, and when they get in the way of politics, because people need to talk more about these types of issues, because there's plenty of people in relationships who don't even realize they're being abused. But when they, but it obviously weighs on them. But when they see somebody talking in this way, this kind of narcissistic language, it really is very eye-opening, very interesting. I was going to talk about Michigan, but I thought maybe quickly we should talk about Chuck Edwards, because he's now leaving the house. He's now leaving after he's been found guilty of sexual harassment. I mean, is this like a theme for the Republicans?
I mean, this is really becoming an epidemic. As I posted on social media this morning, Democrats have their isolated bad apples. We had our Swalwell. You got your Plattner. You have people that here and there.
Right.
But do Democrats wait for the court system?
Right.
That takes years.
They don't cover it up.
Democrats get rid of those people immediately.
Right. Immediately, yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
They get them out. And those people do leave. They don't, they might complain or a little bit for a day or two, but then they go.
Yeah.
But the Republicans never resign. They never quit. They never leave. They're never kicked out by their peers. And so what we see is has now become the culture of the Republican Party, because it starts with lifetime serial abuser of women, Donald Trump, that's the head of their party. And it's now, and he hires and appoints people that have this stuff in their background because he doesn't care about these things. And then you have people like Mike Johnson and John Thune just say, well, it's a family matter. Let the courts sort it out. There was no courts involved in Eric Swalwell's cases. There were no court cases. There were no court cases with Graham Plattner. There were no court cases with a lot of Democrats who were forced out, because we don't need to wait for the courts.
Yeah.
Because that's not the standard.
Yes.
The court, whether proving it in court decides whether you're going to go to prison or not. But we have a different standard for people who serve in Congress.
It shouldn't get that far.
It shouldn't take proof beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. If you're serving in Congress, you should be out if there's credible allegations like this. But Mike Johnson only cares about his majority. So you have somebody like Max Miller, who he wants to hang on to. And now you got this guy, Chuck Edwards, who is just horrible. If you look at these allegations, they're just horrible. He was he was a 65-year-old married man, obsessed with young female staffers, multiples. He would write them poems. He would give them inappropriate gifts. He would hire people to sing at their birthday parties. He was a creep. He wouldn't leave them alone. He made them uncomfortable constantly. And keep in mind, this guy hasn't been in Congress very long. I think like 3 years. He replaced Madison Cawthorn. So the voters of Western North Carolina decided, oh, Madison Cawthorn, he's too shady of a guy. Let's put Chuck Edwards in.
I was going to say.
So what do we get after the ethics committee, bipartisan, unanimous, finds him guilty of all of this stuff? And what is the resolution? He's going to stay in Congress until the end of the year. He's going to stay in Congress. This guy is, after doing all this and after being found guilty by the ethics committee, will remain in Congress until January, walking the halls.
Yeah.
And because Mike Johnson wants to protect his majority and needs his vote. So we let these abusers and predators prowl the halls of Congress because Mike Johnson has a slim majority and he doesn't want to lose it. That's what the Republican Party has become.
Let's see Chuck Edwards' post that he wrote on X. After much prayer and reflection, I have decided to withdraw from my re-election campaign. I will complete my current term. Serving Western North Carolina has been the honor of my life. Thank you for your trust, prayers, and support. God bless WNC in America. I mean, you know, the prayers really in this moment, that's all they've got to hang on to, isn't it? Thoughts and prayers.
I didn't see an apology in there.
Not a word. But my point is that if you put it onto God, and if you say this is something that I am, is between me and God, then maybe you're going to get criticized less because, you know, you've been repenting. I mean, for those of us who are not of a religious denomination, we don't actually have the ability to repent or seek forgiveness from an almighty. We just have to behave ourselves in the first place.
Yeah. And then you're going to go to hell, by the way. But I mean, you know, it's like how many, and these two characters aren't the only ones. I mean, we could go on and on and on. You got Corey Mills, who's also there, who has domestic violence accusations, restraining orders, all kinds of other illegalities going on. I mean, it literally it's an epidemic because none of these things are viewed as negatives, really. None of these things are considered deal breakers. They're not going to prevent you from getting a job in the Trump administration. They're not going to prevent you from winning a Republican primary. Herschel Walker, I mean, another serial abuser. Donald Trump supported him for Senate, won the Republican nomination. I mean, we could go on and on and on. For every one Democrat you can come up with, we can name 20 Republicans who are doing it. It's the culture of the party. And that's why my message to Democrats, since we're going to talk about this in the context of politics, which is what this show is don't make this about the individuals. This isn't just about Max Miller. This is about the culture of the House and Senate Republican leadership and the White House and the party as a whole, that they defend these guys. They stand by them through thick and thin because the acquisition of power is the only thing that matters to them.
I want to present this in the context of the next story. If it's okay with you, we'll talk very quickly about the reflecting pool and the fact that Donald Trump has taken it upon himself to identify these so-called vandals, but not just to identify them, but to criminalize them, to drag them through the court system, even though there is no evidence. And I think this is an example of the type of thing you're talking about, where the cost, like the emotional cost of any of these things. I mean, you can go as far as family separations and immigration, ICE stuff too, where they do not care about the human cost. And in this case, this Olympian was, on his bicycle going past the reflecting pool and stuck his hand in, and he got the full force of the blame. Off the back of this, Judge Jeanine has now announced that there is no evidence and that actually the problem was with the contractors and not with the Olympian at all or any of the people that were arrested. And Trump is furious with her about this. And so now there is this fallout between her and him. Let's have a quick look.
Graffiti all over it. I won't say what was on the sidewalk, but horrible, 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 disgusting stuff. And not only did we fix it, we have military standing there watching it. And if anybody touches it, that was the one mistake with the reflecting pond. They hadn't put up the cameras yet. They had enough up because you see what's happening. But if they would have had them up, we would have had it would have been a lot easier. And I was disappointed with Jeanine Pirro, really disappointed with Jeanine Pirro. She folded like an umbrella, and people get away with things, and it's a disgrace.
Yeah, so people get away with things. What, she got away with it? Not doing what he wanted? Or the innocent bystanders got away with being innocent bystanders? I mean, this is the point that I'm making, is that anybody is fair game, whether it be somebody who dips their hand in the water for a second, or, in this case, a senior member of his administration.
Here's the reality. I mean, the pool was a disaster. We had the algae. It was coming apart. He was humiliated. He was embarrassed. It made him look bad, because we know that what he prides himself in more than anything else is as a developer and a builder. So this is like going to the central core of who he is. He cares more about this than anything else in the world, more than his kids. I think even more than money to some extent. His reputation as a builder of facilities and buildings and remodeler and designer means more to him than anything in the world. And that's where the core of his ego rests, on that pillar.
Right.
And so this goes to the heart of that. And that's why he became so enraged when the public was laughing at him. He was literally like the Wizard of Oz that had the curtain pulled, where everyone in America and around the world was just laughing at what a clown he hired a pool contractor and screwed this up. So here's what we know. There is no possible way that the park police would have arrested anyone if they were left alone to do their job. If they were just normally patrolling that area, not one person would have ever been arrested. But it is obvious and clear that they were ordered by Trump or someone in his administration to go out there and make arrests and get some people, because they wanted to make some people scapegoats. They needed people to blame. Trump needed people to blame. And so anyone who put their finger in the water, touched anything in the water, was arrested and charged with federal crimes, including this guy. And so Pirro ends up presenting false evidence to a grand jury. Why? Because she rushed the indictment through. Before an investigation was completed, she rushed fake evidence in front of the grand jury, which she now admits was false evidence. And then once the investigation was completed later, she realized that what she presented to the grand jury to secure that indictment was fraudulent, was false, proven to be false. So at that point, she had a choice. She could double down on the lie, which is what most of the Trump's sycophants do in this scenario.
Yeah.
But the problem for her is she had to go in front of a court of law with her law license and her liberty on the line.
Right.
And she would have to swear certain things under oath, make certain representations, present evidence, turn over exculpatory evidence to the defense, which is required under the Constitution. And she knew if she did that, not only would her career and her law license be vaporized, but she would likely be held in contempt of court and possibly even jailed by a federal judge. So she pulled back from the brink, knowing that that was going to happen to her personally. She said, I would rather take the abuse from Trump.
Yes.
I would even rather be fired by Trump than go to jail for Trump. And that's why these charges got dropped. But Doug Burgum, it continues to, maintain that there's enough evidence to back up charges. He's just going to stick by Trump and lie. And so is Trump. And that's, it's disgusting. It's disgusting that they won't actually say, because she brought all the evidence. You saw her go to the Oval Office with a big white box.
Right.
and they apparently had it out. According to the reporting, they were yelling at each other. But I would say I think Piro's days are numbered. We talked before. Trump never wants to fire somebody like right then. He typically will wait a little while.
Yes.
I don't think Piro will last a week.
I think you might be right. But again, I mean, what did we expect? You know, she was bad news from the beginning and always has been. And, you know, she really is one of the worst offenders with MAGA propaganda as we see her on Fox.
Let me ask you, do you think Fox will take her back if she gets fired?
100%. It's ratings, Ron. Ratings. So there's that. But also, you know, Trump is furious because she didn't do his dirty work. He's not furious that she didn't find the evidence, or he's not furious that, you know, the decision that she made to do the right thing. He's furious that she did not break the law for him, like all these other individuals are doing. Let's have another look.
And they cut all the way along the base. Cut, cut, cut. Now, when Jeanine looked at it, it was the day after the 4th of July with the largest fireworks display in the world. And the stuff was laying all over the pool, the fireworks, because they used the pool as one of the, and it was all over the pool. It was the day after, very shortly thereafter. But that was working beautifully, and it was vandalized. And if you look at the tape, now the tape isn't a great tape in the sense that it's a little hard to say who it exactly was. But it was people cutting this very expensive material, waterproofing material. Anyway, it looked beautiful. And then they cut it, and they vandalized. And we weren't necessarily thrilled with the contractor, but they did a job, and they were fixing any problems. But then it got carried away because the judge was extremely unfriendly to Jeanine. And frankly, I think she choked because the judge was really vicious. Instead of going after the people that did it, the judge went after her and went after her department. And I guess she choked. I don't know what the hell happened.
Are you reconsidering her role?
I don't know what. You don't. You're fake news. Don't ever talk again. You're fake news. One of the worst in the business. Fortunately, nobody watches you. But
yeah, judges don't go after people. That's the first thing that we should make clear. That's all in Trump's mind. But also, he's a total fantasist. I mean, just listening to him talk and the way he does this cutting kind of, you know, he referred to a box cutter, and everybody was like, how does Trump know what a box cutter is? Do you remember that a few weeks ago? But is it that he actually believes that this pool was vandalized? Or is that he's such a narcissist and he's so unwell that he just has to run with what he decides is the truth?
You know, George Conway had a really interesting back and forth with somebody. I don't know if it's a psychologist or somebody on social media the last couple of days about this.
Right.
Which I thought was really, because, you know, George spent $1 million of his own money during the 2024 campaign running ads about Trump's mental state, right?
Yeah.
And his malignant narcissism. And he hired all these psychiatrists, and Trump was crazy, all those ads, right?
Yes.
So they were talking about this, and I thought that what the points that they were making, based on what I see also as a longtime student of Trump who listens to him, watches him every day, I thought that they were correct, which is that Trump has crossed over into a different area now. That they believe that in the past, Trump always knew he was lying. I mean, he would just make up all these stories and fantasies and lies and this land of make-believe, this alternate world, but he knew that he was lying. And what they said is, they think this has to do with the dementia setting in, is that and also the fact that he surrounds himself with people who lie to him, who go along with the lie, that he has now crossed over into an area where he actually believes the lie is true. He's actually created a fictional world for himself to live in that he truly believes is true now.
Yes.
And he convinces himself of these things, these delusions. And I think that is correct based on what I see. Like, I could always tell, like, you could always tell that little look that he had when he knew he was lying. You could just sense it. Like,
that's right. And that's missing.
Because he would
now.
look to see, like, are people buying this?
Right.
Like, he would always look at either the interviewer or the audience to check if they were buying the bullshit.
Yes.
He doesn't even do that anymore.
No.
Because he's convinced that what he's saying is true. He's convinced himself.
Well, because he's broken. I mean, he really is probably the most compromised human on the planet. And, you know, we have to deal with these decisions. My fear, and I think Mary Trump alluded to a similar thing, his niece, that he doesn't care if he's going to go down, then the whole world is coming down with him. And that is my concern. She said that he wouldn't care how many people died or what the effects were of him taking the whole planet with him. And it sounds crazy and outrageous, but we are relying on our sense of normality and having empathy for humanity. But he is a flawed creature, I don't really like to call him a human, who does not possess any of that. You know, when he's murdering people in small boats that he claims are drug dealers, he's getting off on it, on a kill. He loves
and I
it.
think, you know, he's convinced himself that they are all drug traffickers who deserve to die.
But he doesn't need that to do it.
Yeah,
he'll do it
right.
anyway. Do you see? That's my point. Yeah.
But the other thing that sort of is a tell, as far as like what you said previously, is the fact of one of the statements that he makes often these days is that he's given instructions to the generals to have a nuclear holocaust of the country of Iran if he gets assassinated.
Right.
You know how he's mentioned this many times, this bizarre statement where he says, I've left orders with the generals that if Iran assassinates me, that they are to nuke the entire country of Iran, vaporize the population.
Which means starting.
And that showed you his mentality. If I go, the world, because that could lead to Russia and China. I mean, that could lead to World War III, a nuclear World War III.
But, you know, experts are warning of this. And, you know, this is something that people don't like to talk about because Armageddon is not a great conversation starter or even particularly good at the kitchen table. But this is how dangerous this man is. And that's why it's not funny when we watch him being a clown.
I mean, just think of Iran's closest ally is Pakistan. They have nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, if the U.S. used nuclear weapons on Iran, what's Pakistan going to do? What's Russia going to do? I mean, but that's his mentality. You know, that's
and he just wants to win. I mean, he wants to be seen as the winner, even though it's like he doesn't know or has chosen to forget that he has threatened Iran with obliteration a dozen times because he is such a terrible deal maker. And now he's doing a kind of double negative where he's like, they say that we're not negotiating when we say we are negotiating, but they do that on purpose because of course they're going to say that. Like, you know, like we're buying this. And again, I say it again, I think it might be the third time I've said it on this show. How is it that we are now more likely to believe Iran's press releases
it's crazy
than the United States?
Because more often than not, they're accurate. And, you know, what's about to be announced, I can predict to you this, because I mean, I'm reading all the reports from over there. The reporting over there is Iran is about to finalize a deal with Oman where, you know, ships are going to be allowed to traverse the strait, but they're going to have to pay fees. Mm-hmm. And the Trump administration is going to go along with this. They're going to agree. And the Trump
take the credit for it, Ron.
Trump is already saying, like, we're going to get a percentage of this. Yeah. I mean, keep in mind, before this war, nobody had to pay anything to go through the strait. Nobody. So now, as a result of the war, Iran and Oman are going to jointly, which are on both sides of the strait, are going to jointly collect fees from every ship that is going to cost everyone. It's going to cost companies. It's going to cost consumers.
Yep.
It's like a tariff. Everyone's going to have to pay more for all the products that come out of the strait as a result of this war in perpetuity. And Trump, by the way, here's my two parts to my prediction. One, that deal is going to be announced tomorrow or the next day. Number two, Trump is going to declare victory on that. He's going to say he has achieved a peace deal.
Yes.
And that this is one of the pillars of the peace deal. The strait is now open, he's going to declare, because of him.
Yeah.
Except it's now open with a fee.
I mean, none of this was necessary. None of this should have happened. Trump was just the most foolish president in history that was encouraged to do this. And these are the consequences. But yeah, he's going to take credit for the deal, which is between Iran and Oman. Nothing to do with the U.S.
Nothing to do with us.
He's already saying that, the blockade is still controlled by America and that we still control the blockade and we always have. That's not true either. It's just endless. But it's the fact that every week he can come up. Notice the share prices, the oil prices, and the stock market has, oil prices went down, stock market went up yet again as Trump pulls back, goes back in, few more strikes, pulls back. I mean, this is a massive market manipulation in addition to trying to save face. And, I just want to, we've got to go to a break in a second, but I just want to compare it because I mentioned that, he just wants to be seen as the winner. It's like he wants to have the last word. Right? It's like Ron Burgundy saying goodnight at the end of a bulletin, right? He wants to have the last word. And now Trump supposedly just won his 43rd club championship at one of his golf courses because, despite not playing much golf, supposedly, I mean, this guy is always on the golf course. He has a faster golf buggy than everybody else, so he can get to the ball faster and move it. He is an infamous cheater at the game. He cares more about the golf course than he does Iran or cost of living or any of these things. But let's just have a quick look.
Please join me in congratulating the President of the United States on winning the Super Senior and the Senior Division with a great score of 70.
He won both. That's amazing. Best president of my lifetime. He won. And look at John Cantor stalking him. John, get away from me, please, John Cantor. Snaggletooth, get away from him, Snaggletooth.
Trump cares more about winning than anything else. And what he posted, I'll just read out. He posted on Truth Social, the winning shot in the Bedminster Club Championship. Thank you very much to all of those who participated. I won with a score of 70. I'm so honored in that, unlike the rest of the field, I'm given very little time to practice because I'm focused on many other things. It's called talent, and I have it, and they don't. President Donald J. Trump said without a hint of irony, Ron. He really means it. And this is not just telling, but it's terrifying.
This guy used to play in charity golf tournaments all the time.
Yeah.
All for years he did. That's how he met Stormy Daniels. He was playing in one out in Utah or Las Vegas or whatever it was. I think it was Las Vegas. And he never even, because those are legitimate tournaments.
Right.
They're not at his course.
Yes.
He's not keeping score. You have to putt it. You can't cheat. And he never even came remotely close to winning any of those. Yeah. And in fact, in many of them, he was in the bottom third, finished in the bottom third. And these are tournaments not with professional players. These are tournaments with celebrities and stuff.
Right.
That he can't even crack the top half. And yet, every time he plays in a tournament at one of his courses, whether it's Doral in Miami or Bedminster in New Jersey, as that one was, he wins every time. Not only does he wins with absurdly low scores. He supposedly shot a 70 on Saturday and then a 70 on Sunday again. So 10 strokes lower than his age. And look, the thing about it is like for his age, he's a decent golfer. He's a solid golfer for his age. But that's not good enough for him. He wants to be the best. He wants everybody to try and recognize him as the greatest 80-year-old golfer in history. And so he has to cheat and lie. And I put out so many videos of his golf swing and his putting showing that it's above average at best.
I thought you were going to say below par.
I mean, certainly not great. It's certainly not great.
Yeah.
But somehow he ends up always shooting like 67, 68s,
yes.
And beating like great college players on his own course. Amazing.
And everybody in that video standing around, all the sycophants, they all know that he's cheated, and everyone's having to play along. Oh, it's
I mean, who's going to say anything?
No.
These are members of his club. These are people that already going in, we know, they have paid a lot of money to be a member of Donald Trump's club for the privilege of being out there playing with him in a tournament. You really think any of those guys who are paying all that money to be part of his club are going to call him out for cheating? No way.
My final point in this is it doesn't matter if it's a golf competition or a nuclear war, he wants to be seen as the winner. And I think that he is so deranged that he thinks that he could win a nuclear war in the same way that he can fix a golf competition. And that's the problem. Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. Got lots more to talk about and lots more to analyze, including Mike Lindell, who has potentially caused campaign finance violations by handing out my pillows. We'll do that next here on Uncovered. If you're a cat parent, you know they act like tiny food critics. My cat Shuby has absolutely no problem letting me know when dinner isn't up to his standards. This season, Shuby's been extra playful, so I wanted to make sure that he was eating something that actually supports his health, not just filling the bowl. So I put Smalls on the taste test, and Shuby went straight for it. No hesitation, and that's when I knew that we had a winner. Smalls is fresh, protein-packed cat food made with preservative-free 100% human-grade ingredients that you'd recognize from your own fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. Since switching, I've noticed Shuby has more energy, a softer, shinier coat, and even the litter box situation has improved with less stink. That's because Smalls' fresh, gently cooked recipes are easier for cats to digest and packed with the protein that they naturally thrive on. It's no surprise Forbes ranked Smalls the best overall cat food, and after switching, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. Plus, if your cat is picky, you can try it risk-free because Smalls will refund you if your cat won't eat it. So stop serving your little carnivore a bowl of processed shortcuts for a limited time because you are an Uncovered listener. Get 60% off your first order, plus free shipping and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/uncovered. That's 60% off your first order, plus free shipping and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/uncovered. You know what I do for a living? I read and watch the things nobody should have to, and I've developed a pretty well-calibrated detector for people trying to sell you something that isn't what it claims to be. So take it seriously when I say chapter passed. Medicare is a mess by design. Hundreds of plans, constant fine print, and lots of agents who are paid more to place you in certain plans, which is exactly the kind of incentive structure that should make you suspicious. Chapter is the only Medicare advisor that compares every plan nationwide, and they're honest, not paid to push one plan over another. If your current plan is actually your best option, they'll tell you that and hang up. No upsell, no runaround. Their help is free, takes under 20 minutes, and has saved people an average of $1,100 a year. If you're on Medicare or getting close to 65, skip the sales pitches. Call Chapter at 318-488-4937. My skepticism has been thoroughly applied, so yours doesn't have to be. That's 318-488-4937. And you can find links to our sponsors in the description below. Hey, before we come on to Mike Lindell, maybe we should talk about Michigan, because there is a celebration to be had, I would not deny. Is it my imagination, or are we seeing a bit of a shift towards candidates for the Democrats that are maybe non-traditional, maybe a less establishment, a little bit more democratic socialist, and that actually are answering the needs of the people right now?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing when you look at the demographic breakdown of the result between Stevens and El-Sayed was that El-Sayed overwhelmingly won college-educated white voters primarily, and Stevens won working class, rural voters and black voters. So, you know, the sort of stereotype, I guess you could say, of like a DSA candidate would be their messaging, you would think, would appeal more to the working class, blue collar worker. It's sort of oriented towards them, but that's not who his voters were. I mean, it's so really the big question is, can he capture those voters? Can he get those voters? And that's really the big question that's going to be answered, I think, by this election, which is, we know that these candidates can win in New York. You know, we know that these candidates can win in strong Democratic areas. What we don't know, what has not yet been proven, is can they win in a place like Michigan, in a statewide race, which is a swing state, which is, 50-50 or 51-49 Democrat, can they win in those places? And El-Sayed seems like the right candidate for the job. His very strong speaker. He went right at his opponent today, his Republican opponent today. They are obviously, the Republicans are going after him, that he's a communist, that he's a Muslim. I noticed that the initial statement from the Republican National Committee referred to him as Abdul Rahman. They use his full first name now, which they never did before.
Well, they never used to say Barack Hussein Obama either, did they?
It's the same thing with the Hussein Obama. Yeah. They're going to go full like he's got a strange name. He's an Arab. He's a Muslim. He's a communist. And he seems up for that challenge. Mm-hmm. He seems ready to give it back as good as he gets it. I thought his responses to that kind of messaging was very good. It was also very good that Mallory McMorrow and Stevens both very strongly endorsed him and supported him immediately after the election. There was, unlike the Texas primary, no hard feelings, no bad blood. It appears that the party is coming together. The question is, will the voters also join them? I hope so. Obviously, I'm 100% supporting him, on board all the way. I don't get involved in primaries. I stay out. But once those are over, I support the nominee, and I'm supporting him 100%. And I think that if he does win, it really is gonna, because there's plenty of people still right now today, even after this result, nationally, longtime Democratic consultants who are still saying, we shot ourselves in the foot with this. We're going to lose now. We're going to lose. We wouldn't have lost with Stevens, but now we're going to lose with this guy.
Yeah.
And so they're still out there saying this.
Yeah, but they're wrong, Ron.
If he wins, I think that could conclusively, once and for all, prove them wrong. If he loses, the debate rages on.
Let's take a look.
Michiganders are sick and tired of BS politics coming in to divide us when there's so much more we can unite to actually guarantee if we're willing to come together around it. So if all Mike Rogers got is that his name is Abdul and my name is Mike, you're going to be surprised how many people will be like, yeah, but that's the Abdul who wants to bring down the price of my groceries and gas and stop us sending money abroad and make sure that I got health care. So yeah, I like that Abdul over your Mike from Florida.
Sounds like an American to me.
I think it's going to backfire what the Republicans are doing. I really do.
Yeah.
And I was on Blue Sky this morning, and there were a few people there fretting about this, that they thinking that this was going to work, the Republican playbook, and they were nervous that it was going to work, that because let's face it, I mean, this stuff has worked in the past for them.
This stuff is racism. Let's just be clear about it.
It's flat out racist.
Yeah.
And it didn't work against Obama, though, because I think if you have the right candidate who sells his message and sticks to the plan, mm-hmm. I think I would contrast him with like the Francesca Hong running for governor of Wisconsin, who has shot herself in the foot in a few interviews with some kind of crazy, wokeified statements about holidays and other things. But, you see that El-Sayed doesn't step into those traps, and neither did Mandami.
But it is difficult. I had Francesca Hung on the Weekend Show a couple of weeks ago, and she didn't put a foot wrong with me. And I tell you why, because she was in a safe environment. Yeah. Right. I gave her the space to speak. I wasn't trying to hit her with, the tough questions. I just wanted to hear what she had to say. And I think people underestimate how difficult it is, because she's not a professional politician, right? She was working in hospitality. So when these people step up and want to be public servants, you have to give them a little bit of license to get some things wrong, because any media is really difficult. I'm not about difficult questions. I'm saying that, look at Tim Walz going on the debate stage, or even Joe Biden on the debate stage. You see what I mean? It's like these environments are not natural, and it is very difficult to appear natural. And actually, some people will default to the being wound up and saying the wrong thing, or just trying to push buttons, and it is tough.
I think what we're going to see in politics, this is a whole new ball game now. It's different than, like, for my generation and maybe even yours. We didn't have internet, when we were 21.
Right.
So there isn't this documented social media history, because look, let's face it, when you're in your late teens, early 20s, mid 20s for men mature later, you say a lot of dumb things, and you believe a lot of, and you read things that in college, you're reading all this crazy stuff left and right, conservative.
Right. Well, your opinions are being formed.
You're forming you're hashing things out, right? Yeah. And over time, you sort of coalesce around your belief system. But during that developmental stage, you're saying a lot, you might have a lot of crazy opinions. The problem is, for a lot of these candidates now that are her age and Mandami's age, is that those years were on the internet, and they're on social media. And so what's happened is Republicans are going back, in media too, and digging up all this social media history from, like, when they were 21 years old. Like she said, she talked about maybe we shouldn't have Thanksgiving, we should cancel Thanksgiving, and Fox News brought that up, and it turned into a big viral thing, and so it's a whole different ball game now, where you're really going to see now, I think, with candidates for both parties, but especially for Democrats, because Republicans exploit this stuff much more, is that they're going to go back and they're going to dig into your social history. And so I think over time, what's going to happen with voters is they're going to stop paying attention to that. It's not going to be as effective.
Well, because it's obvious that it's a hit job. This is the problem.
And people say things when they're young. As long as you sort of do what Mandami and El-Sayed have done, which is to say, look, I was 20 years old when I said, I don't believe that anymore. I don't think that anymore. I've matured. As long as you do that, I think voters are ready to discount it. But it's when they catch you, sort of like in the case of Plattner, doubling down on those things like 2 years ago, that it becomes a problem,
Let's have another look at El-Sayed and see for me, the word is authentic, the authentic way that he presents these arguments.
Mike's a guy who spent 14 years in Congress with one goal: to figure out how to cash out the day he left. And guess what he did? As soon as he left Congress, after having taken corporate check after corporate check after corporate check to empower the corporations to pick your pockets, he went and he cashed out. Not in Michigan. No, winters are too cold for him. He's got thin skin after all. He went to Florida. So, Mike, if you want to be a Florida man, go be a Florida man. If you want to golf in Florida, go golf in Florida. But I promise you, in November, we are going to send you back to Florida. Mike Rogers is the guy who wants to put a data center in your backyard so he can make himself feel a little bit more manly by making an AI video. Mike Rogers is the guy who has never shied away from a DTE check so he could turn his face in the direction of Florida. Mike Rogers is a guy who will do anything Blue Cross Blue Shield wants him to do, including raise your rates. Mike Rogers is a guy who introduced legislation to increase the flow of opioids. He did that while I was in high school. Mike Rogers is a guy whose politics and vision and perspective are old. Mike Rogers is a guy who has never shied away from a corporation he could do a favor for. Mike Rogers is a guy who, believe it or not, went back to Florida so he could lick every single boot Donald Trump owns to beg for his endorsement. I'm so sorry. If you want a senator who's going to lick some boots, fine, go vote for Mike Rogers. But if you want a senator who's going to stand up to Donald Trump, then you've got your option right here.
Just a very quick observation, Ron. You know, Barack Obama's tenure from 2008 inspired a lot of young people into leadership roles. And, you know, I worked as a media trainer and advisor to politicians in a previous life, and I am hearing the pentameter of Barack Obama in these speeches. And, you know, you could replace, they actually have quite similar voices. But, you know, this is the importance of having an Obama in recent American history, is that it undoubtedly inspired people like Abdul El-Sayed. And it's so nice to hear it.
Because there was a lot of people in 2008, including a lot of Obama supporters, who didn't think it could happen. You know, he didn't think, they just believed, even though they had hope and they had optimism, they just believed that there were too many white people, primarily, you know, in America, that would not vote for a black man, you know, that would not vote for someone with the name Barack Hussein Obama. And I think that I think Chris Rock did a whole routine on this where this is basically what he said, was that he wanted to believe, but he just didn't believe it was possible. And then when it happened, and it happened twice, I think that convinced a lot of people like El-Sayed and many others that their last name or their religion or their skin or their ethnicity is not a deal breaker in American politics anymore. That, you know, middle class, white people, educated people who are not part of your race or your religion will vote for you if you have the right message. And I think what proves that is this: in this Democratic primary, El-Sayed was outspent 9-1 by Haley Stevens. And most of the Democratic establishment in Congress was backing Stevens. So up against all of that, he won. So I think that he won. And why did he win? You're seeing why he won. That's why he won.
Yeah.
You know,
very grounded, authentic, and mentally healthy. You know, there is a clarity of thought, a critical thought. And, you know, it's so interesting because if you watch Republicans being interviewed on Fox, they are very good at saying a lot of words with absolutely no meaning, right? These word salads. And to actually hear people who make sense and are not frightened to really lean into the topic and give authentic answers. If all our politics was like that, and we removed these charlatans, so much more would get done. So much more debate would be had on both sides. And as it stands, you know, I really do feel that it's like the theater of politics in America. Where, you know, the president's playing the role of the president, and you kind of expect the Netflix credits to roll at the end, you know. And it isn't like that on the ground. So we need to be represented by people who are as real as the people who voted for them. And in contrast to that, let's talk about John Fetterman, because
I guess we have to.
I guess we have to. Now, this is a guy who's obviously been through a lot. He had it was a stroke, really, wasn't it, that kind of changed his life, but it also seemed to change his politics and his dress sense too. And that was very interesting times for those of us that kind of went through that. So now, invariably, he politically tends to side with Republicans all the time, although still is officially a Democrat. Part of me just wishes he would just admit that he's a Republican and just kind of switch sides, make it a lot easier for the rest of us. But he's been making some public appearances in the last few days where I don't know why he put a suit on for the television. He never seems to wear one at work. And he's not really making any sense at all. And this is, another example of why we really need people that are mentally healthy who are representing us. Do you just want to set up this before I play? I'll play the Jon Stewart clip second, but I'll play the CNN one first.
Well, just very briefly, he has done 90% of his interviews with Fox.
Yeah.
Because the Fox hosts, especially Sean Hannity, love to bring him on, and they bait him, because they know that they can manipulate him he's like a child at this point. They can easily manipulate him. So they bring him on and they only ask him questions to get him to criticize Democrats. In other words, they never ask, like, what do you think about this thing that Donald Trump did that he might disagree with? He's never going to be asked that question. And he's never going to be interrogated or pinned down on some of the inconsistencies in his positions. He gets a friendly softball interview and he understands that he's being brought there to trash Democrats.
Right.
And so even though his voting record has been like 90% with the Democrats, the only thing we ever hear out of him is criticizing Democrats. That's because the only place he ever goes is Fox News.
Yes.
And so for the first time, in a long time, he actually did a couple of interviews that was not Fox. He did CNN, and Jon Stewart, who actually did a very good interview of Fetterman. But I thought what was interesting about Jon Stewart is he got to the heart of the matter with some of Fetterman's bullshit. But the CNN thing, they asked him, and this is the first time I can recall him actually being asked this question, which is, do you think right now you would win a Democratic primary in Pennsylvania? And he actually says yes. I don't know if he really believes that. I tend to think he does believe it. Like he's delusional at this point, because he would get absolutely pasted in a Democratic primary right now. But he seemed to kind of believe that he will be okay. I would have liked if the interviewer also followed up with, if you switch parties, do you think you can actually win a Republican primary? Because I'd like to hear his answer about that.
Well, I think you're expecting too much of Wolf Blitzer. Let's take a look.
See, if a Democratic Senate primary were held in Pennsylvania today, the Commonwealth, as you like to call it, of Pennsylvania, do you believe you would win? If there was a Democratic primary in Pennsylvania,
like today?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that's we don't know exactly, but overall, it's 2026, so it's really kind of a theoretic.
It is a hypothetical.
Yeah, it's hard with him. I mean, you saw him answering the question. I didn't really see him answering the question. To me, it was a little bit too. It was too required too much critical thought, and he really is. He's
not
just
there.
Not there. And it's not his fault. Mentally.
And you saw it with Jon Stewart. The second Jon Stewart actually did just the slightest amount of pushback, which Fetterman never gets on Fox. I mean, he folds. He can't.
Apart,
he can't handle it.
Let's take a look at that.
So for you could agree with them 90%, but Israel is the red line.
Absolutely. Israel for me. Like I can't ever turn my back to Israel after where it's at.
So, and I mean no disrespect on this, but that is not our country. You're saying that these candidates may have great ideas for our economy. They may want to do the exact same thing you want to do in terms of getting money out of politics. They may want to increase the social safety net. They may want to change the balance of power from capital back to labor. But if they don't agree with you on Israel, you don't want them in your party.
Well, I don't know who you're referencing to specifically.
No, I'm referencing what you just said.
Name.
So in other words, Sayed or AOC or Bernie Sanders, I assume you agree with a lot of what they say economically.
And what I'm saying is, like, if you are a DSA member, if you are a member of a specific political party, run under your own banner. And now I think Bill Maher said something very insightful. He said, the DSA are colonizing the Democratic Party. So just be Democrats if you're going to run under the Democratic Party for that. Why have a DSA party for overall? So run on that, and you all understand.
It's just an organization. It's not, we have a two-party system. We don't, it's like the Freedom Caucus in the Republican Party. There are, there's Randy Fine and Ogles and all these nutbags that are also part of an area, and Republicans, I'm sure, may not agree with all of them on all kinds of things, but there is no other party.
Well,
I guess you could try it, but my point is, if you don't disagree with them on a lot of things, why not use some of that energy? And even like Mamdani in New York is DSA, but there are things in the DSA platform that he disagrees with. And I'm assuming there's probably things in the Democratic platform that you might disagree with, but you don't disavow the entire thing. You're literally saying we can all have discussions, except when it comes to Israel, which is not America. It seems like a weird line to draw.
Well, so then, I don't think that's weird. I think what history demonstrates is that when people or a government or people turn their back to the Jewish community, things end really badly, and it's a dangerous.
Jewish community and Israel are not the same thing, brother man. They're not. That is not the same thing.
No. It's like, hey, it's like if I have to pick a side for after 10/7 and after Iran, I'm always going to stand with Israel. I'm always going to vote and support whatever that's necessary to protect themselves and to prosecute Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran too. And the very left never said a peep after Iran executed 30 to 40,000 young people in there just for protesting for democracy.
You think that the left is pro Iran, not the country, but the regime?
What I'm saying though is, like, if anyone in the Democratic Party is fine with Iran building a nuclear bomb, I disagree with that person.
I think most people are. Again, I think you're caricaturing the issue, but is there anything you would criticize Israel about?
A little plug for Jon Stewart there. Did you notice that there is a lot of the patterns of speech out of Fetterman's mouth that are actually quite similar to the dementia patient Donald J. Trump, and conflating things in the way that he did, and suddenly going to Iran can never have a nuclear weapon at the end there was a perfect example of that. That actually, and Fetterman has a brain injury effectively. To me, I mean, I'm no clinician, but he and Trump are kind of singing from the same hymn sheet.
So, yeah, I mean, what Stewart's getting at the beginning there is Fetterman's recent statements saying that if the Democratic Party doesn't unequivocally support Israel 100%, no questions asked, he can't be a Democrat. That's his red line, what Stewart mentioned. And what Stewart's trying to get at is like, wait a minute, you're saying if you agree with Democrats on everything else, as his voting record suggests, that you agree with them on all these economic issues, social issues, abortion, separation of church and state. There's like 90%, 95% of things that Fetterman agrees with mainstream Democrats on. But you're saying that if a Democrat doesn't 100% support the Netanyahu regime, you're out. And they're out as far as you're concerned. They suck. They're no good. He has never once criticized Israel for anything. If you bring up Gaza to him or any of the things that are happening there, he doesn't want to hear it. As far as he is concerned, what happened on October 7th, which was horrendous and atrocious, justifies whatever Israel wants to do to every person in Gaza, whether they had anything to do with it or not. Men, women, children, you name it. That's his position. So when he gets asked about that, what does he do? He pivots to name names. Give me some names, because he wants DSA member names to be thrown out of people that he doesn't like, so he can then do ad hominem personal attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Stewart doesn't take the bait, doesn't do it, says, look, we're talking about issues, we're talking about positions. And then he pivots to, yeah, like you said, Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. It's just all this gobbledygook where he switches to one thing, then to the next that has nothing to do with what you're talking about.
But they're all Republican talking points, aren't they?
Iran too. I mean, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Democrats, has any Democrat ever said that they want to see Iran get a nuclear weapon?
Right.
I don't remember hearing a single Democrat say that they want Iran to have nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
They just believe that there was a different way, a better way to prevent that from happening than bombs.
Well, there was an Iran nuclear
And you can have a good faith argument about whether the Obama approach or the bombing approach of Trump is better, but it doesn't mean that you think that Iran should have a nuclear weapon if you think that bombing them is not the way to make that happen. Right. It shows you just the guy has no critical thinking skills.
But his brain is scrambled.
Whatsoever.
I mean, it's really, if Congress had any standards, if you have a major stroke, you can't work in the Congress anymore. It's not critical of your disability. It's just the reality. And he cannot function.
And we know it wasn't just the stroke. We know he had another serious medical emergency. I don't know if it had to do with his kidneys or something else. After the stroke, we know he's also had these serious depression issues.
Correct.
After the stroke. So it's not just the stroke may have led to those things, may have made those things worse.
Exacerbated them, yeah.
Yeah, but then you have people at Fox News who view this as an they understand that his brain is not right.
They are abusing him.
And they are taking advantage of the situation. And so people get on me when I get on him saying that I'm being abusive and I'm being too harsh on him because he's suffering from a medical condition or depression. And it's like, if he wasn't serving in the Senate, I would leave him alone. Right. If he wasn't going on Fox News every night trashing Democrats, I would leave him alone. I'm not going after him for no reason. I'm going after him because of what he's saying and the positions that he's taking.
But he couldn't, as Stuart pointed out, he couldn't differentiate between Israel and Jewish people. And these things are important.
Think about what he said there. He said he has to support Israel unequivocally, 100%, because if you don't, history has shown bad things happen to Jewish people when you don't support them. He's referring to the Holocaust.
Yeah.
So what he's saying is, if we don't back Netanyahu's annihilation of Gaza and occupation of Gaza, that we are encouraging a Holocaust again for American Jews or something.
But these are all Republican.
It makes no
Republican
sense.
Talking points. It doesn't make sense, but it's like he's watched Fox, he's heard them say that, and he's repeating it. A little bit like somebody else we know who just watches Fox all day. Let's move on. I want to talk about Todd Blanche and this vote to confirm him as the Attorney General. You've got Tillis and Cornyn, who've now caved on their vote. They were holdouts, weren't they? And now it looks like he is going to get the confirmation that he so craves. You'll remember that I correctly predicted that he was going to end up being the Attorney General a few months back when Pam Bondi disappeared. I was like, to me, this is all setting in place a plan, because I think they probably originally wanted Donald Trump's personal defense, criminal defense attorney to be the Attorney General, and it looks like they're going to get their way. So just before I play the clip of Cornyn, just tell us kind of how you see this.
This whole thing was a charade. It was a sham. It should have never been just about this, because when they first came out with their joint statement, Cornyn and Tillis saying, as long as they put out what they said was, as long as they modify the court order and all parties to the original IRS settlement and agreement sign a modification changing the settlement agreement. And the parties were the Department of Justice on one side, On the other side, 3 people: Donald Trump, Eric Trump, and Donald Trump Jr. Those are the signers to the original agreement. What they said is they wanted it modified with all the original signers modifying it, and the IRS settlement to be gone, revoked, the immunity from audits, and the weaponization fund to be dead. So even when they said that, I thought that was a ridiculous thing, because even if they do that, you can always renege on that, number one. And number two, wait a minute. If you're saying that that deal that was made is so immoral, illegal, and unethical, the person who negotiated that deal and agreed to it on behalf of the U.S. government was Todd Blanche. He was the architect of that agreement. So you're saying that I will confirm him to be Attorney General for everything the Department of Justice oversees going forward. I will confirm the man who came up with that agreement. But first he has to undo it. Basically just say, okay, forget the whole thing, and we'll say it's okay. So here's what happens. They don't comply. Blanche puts out an order which just says, leaves the IRS immunity in place, which gives Trump immunity from IRS audits through 2026. So last year, all that shady money that he made in crypto, everything he made overseas, all of his shady business deals are not subject to audit. And he knows that prior to filing his tax returns, that he can't be audited. I wonder how much taxes Trump is going to pay on that $2 billion he made. I'm sure he's going to pay the full amount in taxes, knowing going in that he will not be audited. So it didn't reverse the audit. And then the parties to the original agreement didn't sign it. Only Blanche signed it. Trump didn't sign anything. Eric and Don Jr. didn't sign anything. So the whole thing was a charade. But like Neville Chamberlain on the tarmac in 1938, they're waving their peace in our time paper and saying, I looked Hitler in the eye, and he told me that he was not going to invade the Sudetenland. We have peace in our time. That's what Tillis and Cornyn are doing right now.
Or it's even like Helsinki, where Trump's like, I asked this guy if he interfered in the election, and he said no. And I believe him. I mean, the problem is that Todd Blanche, purely by nature of the fact that he was Donald Trump's personal lawyer, is a bad egg. And so he is not to be trusted. Let's take a look.
And Senator, your Democratic colleagues say that this order from Blanche rescinding the fund isn't binding. Why do you disagree?
Well, the weaponization fund is dead. We pointed out that the Department of Justice has represented that to numerous courts. And as to the idea that it could be revived in the future, I think it's highly unlikely that could happen without the cooperation of the Department of Justice. And I think Mr. Blanche gave us the assurances that it was dead and would not be revived. And in this case, we have no alternative but to take his word for that. And but I think it's highly unlikely that it could be revived.
And Senator,
we have no alternative. But to take his word for it.
Here's an idea. How about this is for an alternative? Vote no.
Right. Don't take his word for it.
That's an alternative.
Because his word is not enough.
Take his word for it. This is the guy who transferred Ghislaine Maxwell to the minimum security prison.
That's right.
Who does Jeanine Pirro report to? Todd Blanche. He's the Attorney General.
Yeah.
The U.S. Attorney for D.C. reports to the Attorney General. So those fraudulent pool prosecutions happened under his watch. The Comey indictment. We could go on and on and on about the shady things that this guy, the Epstein files,
which he now claims
the redactions
are done. Yeah.
We could give hundreds of things. All the prosecutors who resigned in protest because of bogus grand jury indictments in New York and Virginia and all over the country. There's a whole, that's why I kind of was upset that the media kind of took the bait and made it all about this one thing.
Yeah.
When it's
was about all of
Blanche, it's about so much more. And Susan Collins, by the way, did her usual thing.
Yes.
Once she knew that the votes were there.
Yeah.
And he was going to make it. She comes out and says, I'm going to vote against him. The only time that Susan Collins ever goes against Trump and ever goes against Republican leadership is when she knows her vote doesn't matter. She has never once in the Trump era since 2017 cast a deciding vote against Trump.
Yeah.
Every time she goes against him, it's a meaningless vote, and she's doing it again.
Well, Cornyn actually admits that it's not possible to rein in the president over this. Let's take a look.
I was saying as recently as yesterday that he likes the idea of this fund, that he wants to find some way to pay these people. Does that concern you as someone who's tried to fight against getting this anti-weaponization fund in place?
Well, there's nothing we could do to rein in the president when he said he likes the fund and he wishes it still exists, but the fact of the matter, it's dead. And that's all we could do under these circumstances. See you all.
Thank you.
Yes. The defeatist voice of the Republican Party, who are all under the thumb of a despot.
Montesquieu and Madison rolling over in their grave. The government, the constitutional republic that they crafted with separation of powers and checks and balances, as you hear there from John Cornyn, it's all out the window. There's nothing we can do to stop Trump.
Yeah. Okay, listen, we have to finish, but let's do Mike Lindell before we do. He's now in trouble with the law yet again. They found probable cause, I think, that he's committed campaign finance violations by trying to bribe voters with free pillows. Let's take a look. Yes, I'm sure Elton John didn't sanction the use of his music. What's happening here?
Well, this is the 4th of July parade in this town. And by the way, Lindell's going to be the Republican nominee in Minnesota. After Trump endorsed him, he shot up in the polls. He's like leading by 9%. Right. I think the primary is next week. He is going to be the Republican nominee for governor of Minnesota, which is, I mean, obviously, Klobuchar is going to annihilate him. So, but the comedy value, it's already paying off because, so he does this float and you can see him, he's throwing free pillows to people, which he had done this years before where he's throwing pillows from floats and parades, and it's not really an issue. But the problem is when you're a candidate for governor, you can't give prospective voters anything for free of monetary value.
Yep.
So somebody filed a complaint against him saying that he is attempting to bribe voters with free pillows. Only Lindell would try and win an election bribing them with shitty pillows, and so he got reported, and the elections commission in the state of Minnesota found probable cause that he is guilty of trying to bribe voters with pillows. So, yep, there you go. Only Mike Lindell.
He only has himself to blame. He's made his bed, and he should lie in it. All right, listen, Ron, thank you again for this Wednesday chat. We'll come back next Wednesday with another episode of Uncovered. Don't forget to download the audio podcast. And starting this week, you'll get more drops during the week as well of other opinion pieces from me. So you'll find that on Uncovered wherever you get your podcasts. Check out the sponsors in the description below. We'll come back next week and bring you another episode. Thanks a lot, Ron.
All right. See you next week, everybody.